this first foster home I went to, and this lady must have had she had about 6 or 7 of us, because she had like a dormitory room up on the 2nd floor with bunk beds lined up, and we all slept in those. But, well, I'll tell you, she was mean too. And I kept, every time that caseworker would come, I'd ask her if they could get me another place. So finally they did. They moved me out to another place. And it was like in a little town, a little bit like North Canton, only not quite as big. I don't remember the name of the town. But I went there, and I lived with this older couple. They were their son lived next door, and he must have been a huge businessman or something, because they had a big place. They had 2 kids, a daughter and a son, and they had a moving projector with every film you could think of in it. They had pinball machines in the basement that you didn't have to put money in, you could just play them. And pool table, I mean, and he had every game that you could think of. The wall was just lined with games. And I thought, geez, these people are wealthy. And the man that I lived with, he was an auto mechanic, and he had his own garage, and they bought me a bicycle, and I used to ride the bicycle down there to the garage and watch him work on cars and stuff. He'd let me come in and watch it. I liked that pretty well. And I joined the Cub Scouts there, and I was in the Cub Scouts. I remember we were having a paper drive, going around collecting newspapers and magazines to raise money for the Scouts. And it was like a state truck we were hauling it in. And they come in, they had a driveway that a little bit like ours at home. It was a horseshoe. But they come in around that drive, and I stood up on the side of this state truck, you know, the slats in it, and was waving at them as we went through, and there was a low limb hanging, and I didn't have a shirt on, and it caught me on the back and just took the hide right off my shoulder. And they thought I was, I said, it's okay, it's okay. No, we gotta take you out. No, I don't want to go to the hospital. So she put some cream on it, and it was okay. I do remember one incident that happened, and this was back when I went to the first foster home, right in the middle of it. That was the day that Roosevelt died. I was there for 2 days. So whatever date that was would pinpoint my age, but I can't remember what date that was. I know it was before the end of the war, so it had to be 1944 probably. That would make me 10, because I was born in 34. So I was 9 or 10, somewhere in there. Anyway, I stayed there for a while, and I really liked it there. But then, I don't know what happened, but I got moved to another foster home. And these people that I went to, they had a son of their own. And these people were wealthy people. I mean, they lived in one of these Tudor mansions, and he was the vice president of Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. Charles Wood was his name. And the first day I was there, they were going to a big banquet where he was going to get some kind of an award or something at a country club. And of course I had these clothes that they had bought me. I didn't have a suit or anything. So they took me out the first day I was there and bought me a suit and a tie and everything so I could dress up and go to this big dinner with them. And I went, and I was so impressed, you know. But then that's when the caseworker came to me and said, of all the places you have lived, can you think of any place that you'd rather go back to? And I remembered my mom and dad here in Canton when I was, incidentally, going back, I was with them 2 other times and left back and forth. So the last time I left was when he got drafted into the Navy, and she didn't feel she could keep me, you know, being single. So I went, I remembered the address, and so I told them what their name was and the address. I remembered 707 Sandals Place, you know, it was easy to remember. And so she said, okay, we'll get in touch with them. In the meantime, Mr. and Mrs. Woods came to me and said, I understand that you put in a request to be moved back to these other people that used to keep you. And I said, yeah. And he said, look, he said, I'll make a deal with you. He said, if we like you and you've been a good friend for my son, who's the only child, and it's good for him not to be an only child, he said, if you'll stay, I'll see that you get a college degree, I'll take care of you, we'll adopt you and everything else. Now, I was a fool, believe me. I said, nah, I said, I want to go with these people, because all I could remember, all of in my mind at that time was the good things. I didn't remember there was bad things too. You try to put those out of your mind. They got a hold of her, but she was with him in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was stationed out there in the Navy. And she came back, picked up my grandmother, her mother, and they caught a bus down to Cincinnati and packed up. I came back with them. And we stayed there about 2 months, and then my dad got transferred out to California. My stepdad got transferred out in the Navy, got transferred to California, San Diego, at the Naval Shipyard there. So we went out there to live. We went out after Germany surrendered, because I remember being downtown Canton at the square when Germany surrendered and everybody was celebrating and carrying on. So when we went out to California, it was shortly after Germany surrendered, and that was a long trip. It was like a 5-day trip on the bus. And we rented a motel cabin. It was on the side of a hill. And three of us lived there together. Well, she had a girlfriend that she had worked with that went with us. So 4 of us lived there. Of course, he was gone some of the time, you know, and some of the time he was home on leave. And weekends, once weekend a month or something like that, he got home. Then when Japan surrendered, a month later, he got discharged. And I remember we caught the train to come home. We went out on a bus, but we came back on the train into Chicago, and then we had to lay over, switch trains, and used to have the train station down here in Canton. We came right in downtown Canton, and then back to Sandals' place. Well, I was in the 5th grade then. Now let me think, I graduated when I was 19. So let's back up 7 years. So I would have been 12 when we came back to Canton. Because I was halfway through the 5th grade. I was starting my second year, or second half, and I went to Cherry School, which isn't standing anymore. It's a McDonald's now that's boarded up. But it was on the corner of Cherry and Ninth. You're right, right there at the Y. And I went there from the 5th grade through into high school. And then I went to Timken High School,